While your day is winding down, they're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Good evening. Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow.
And I'm Chris McCarthy.
We've been keeping it light this evening, just taking a break from the politics just for a night and talking about TV shows, entertainment, things that you may like. A lot of you have called in, left some app chat messages talking about TV shows you like. Open topics for the final hour of the show, 508-996-0500.
Don't worry, later in the week we'll get back to Doomsday and
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll be back on it tomorrow. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, guys.
Hey, what's going on, my man?
Not much. Let's see. We're talking about mafia dudes. Now, there's a guy,
Mafia's
Chris,
good. Yeah.
Chris does not like this guy, and I don't blame Chris for not liking this guy. From what I read about him, I don't like him either. And he was messing with Balder and all those people back in the day, but he was from New Bedford.
Oh, and Joe Barboza.
Joe the Animal Barboza.
Yeah, Joel the Wimp Barboza there that used to go around with an M1 carbine and shoot people.
Yes.
And blame it on other people.
Yes, sir.
He ended up getting blasted 4 times with a shotgun. Chris says they used an M1 carbine on him. No, I actually looked it up. It was a shotgun.
There were multiple hitters. It was J.R. Russo, allegedly Spucky, who's still around, Spucky Spagnuolo, who's around on the North Shore still. J.R. Russo, who's gone now. Those guys are legendary hit teams. In fact, if you get arrested today as a member of La Cosa Nostra in New England, one of the things they'll put to deny you bail is that New England La Cosa Nostra has the ability to reach out across the country because they killed New Bedford's own Barboza in California. They got him on the street in California. So a hit team from New England.
Yeah, but
while in witness protection.
Barboza, I guess, was a rough guy, but he was doing the Whitey Bulger.
Yeah, they called him Joe the Animal.
Supposedly, when he was what's the right word? Ravenous, prison raper.
Yeah.
Yeah, real bad.
What's the right word?
I mean,
yeah, I know.
There's a lot to pick
do you like the fellas in the clink?
Well, I think that the experts will tell you it's not so much about, it's not a gay thing as much as it's a power thing, as much as it's a domination thing, that type of it. But yeah, he was he couldn't be satisfied. You know, I mean, he was a real psychotic about that in prison, according to the documents I've read.
I can solve the Jimmy Hoffa mystery. You know why they can't find Jimmy Hoffa?
He's dead.
Because that, and he's in pieces in the ocean. Well, there's nothing left if he's in the ocean, but I believe they chopped him up and threw him in the ocean. Probably bait on a fishing trip.
So there's a theory, and I don't believe it, that he was killed. Obviously, he was killed in the Detroit area, but then his body was shipped across country to New Jersey so that the New Jersey Mafia would have a trophy or a bargaining chip, that someday in the future they could say, I can give you Hoffa's body so you can solve that case. I just don't believe that you would ever risk transporting a body from Detroit to New Jersey.
I think a lot of these guys that have came out said they know where Hoffa's body is or lying.
Of course.
Just like he's buried under a football stadium. They dug that whole stadium up and couldn't find him.
The final place that I thought had a lot of credence was Brother Moscato's dump in New Jersey, which was an old toxic waste dump. And, Fox News was involved in it. They went as far as to get a warrant to exhume what they thought was the body, and it was not him. It was not a body at all. So I think that he was killed gangland style and disposed of gangland style. Yeah, not any additional mystery to it.
I think he ended up fishing bait, honestly. They cut him up in a wood chipper. There is stories about him being put in a wood chipper, too. And I believe they went deep sea fishing and they used him as bait. That's why I think you're never going to find out what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. It's obvious he was killed, and who do they think killed him?
Well, they think that the order came from New Jersey mobsters, or maybe from Zarelli, the Tocco Zarelli family out there in Detroit, who really had their hooks into Hoffa. There's a number of suspects, but he was playing with a lot of.
What about the story from the Irishman, the Martin Scorsese movie?
So, from people who I believe are correct, historians on organized crime,
sure,
they think that was a big BS story.
Yeah,
and that the guy who wrote the book was definitely involved with Hoffa.
Yeah,
but that he didn't do it, and that someone made a lot of money selling the rights to De Niro.
Yeah, it was Frank Sheeran, right? Yeah, that's the name of the guy. And it was based on the book I Heard You Paint Houses. Yeah.
Right.
And it was all over Hoffa wanting to be president again. They didn't want him to be president again.
Yeah, which is no small thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, president of the Teamsters.
Being president of the Teamsters is the equivalent of being president of the United States.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think back in those days, too. It was a bigger thing to be the boss of the Teamsters than it is now.
They had much more members and a bigger say in what was going on. Absolutely.
Yeah, Hoffa had a lot of power, I think, more than any other Teamster leader in history.
In fact, right before I got sick, I was negotiating with Sean O'Brien's people to bring Sean on, who's the president of Teamsters now. We have a mutual friend, and I was talking to his comms guy regularly, a nice guy. We just couldn't get it together. He's got a national appearance schedule, and so we just couldn't get it done. But I would like to do that, Marcus. They've got an election coming up, and they've got a national contract. They're redoing the national contract with the UPS right now.
We'll make it happen.
UPS is the big contract for them now.
Yeah.
Well, I've said my part, guys.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for the Barboza story, but I heard he was quite the character.
I would agree. In fact, if you go on YouTube, Channel 12 has got some old videos of him testifying. It's pretty interesting stuff. I mean, he's like right out of Central Casting, really. Yeah. There's a woman in the audience, and I don't know if she's still with us, but she was a waitress downtown, and she told me that she would wait on Joe Barboza regularly. That he was a very nice guy. He would come in, he would eat alone, and then he would take the bus to Providence. That was her story. And that he was a very nice guy.
Well, most of those mafia guys are nice guys to public people.
Every one of them I know has been a perfect gentleman.
As mean as they are.
Yeah. Everyone I know has been a perfect gentleman. If you're in their world, that's a different world. But there's a real separation between their world and the real world, and they recognize that.
Yeah.
I think most of the mob guys I've known enjoy having friends who are not mob guys. Some semblance of
would you want to be around that all the time, watching your back?
No, it's craziness. It's really crazy.
All right, good night.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.
Speaking of The Irishman.
Yes.
Your favorite De Niro movie, do not say Goodfellas. Everybody says Goodfellas. Your favorite De Niro movie besides Goodfellas?
Come on, we talked about it the other night.
King of Comedy?
King of Comedy. Rupert Pupkin.
Oh, my God.
Rupert Pupkin. It is the most un-De Niro De Niro movie.
I can't even run my own life for 6 weeks.
It's the most
can't do the show for 6 weeks.
Un-De Niro movie.
It really is. Well, it shows the range of his talent.
Right. Jerry Lewis is in there.
Jerry Lewis is in it. Yeah. Oh, my God. And
Sandra Bernhardt.
Sandra Bernhardt is the other lunatic,
right.
Isn't she? Yeah,
she's the woman.
Yeah,
she used to regularly be. Well, I got to know her because she was a regular on David Letterman.
Yeah.
When he was just as nutty as she was back then, it was in the 80s. It was a really good show. And the King of Comedy is I would have to say the best De Niro movie.
It's I think his best performance. It's so good when he's like the way. Like when he's talking to Jerry, when he's got him like
give out
a
Rupert Pupkin award.
Yeah, we could. We definitely could. I mean, he was like holding Jerry at gunpoint. He's like, "Yeah, that's the way they treated me too." Now look where we are. Like,
guys, it is so good.
It's so good.
Run, don't walk to go see it.
Yeah, King of Comedy is an excellent, excellent movie. It's about a guy named Rupert Pupkin who spends a lot of his time
fantasizing that he's going to become a Johnny Carson.
Basically, right. Fantasizing that he's going to become a Johnny Carson type of person.
Who is the Johnny Carson type character is played by
Jerry Lewis.
To acclaim, really.
Yeah, no, they both played to acclaim. I mean, Robert De Niro, again, not a Robert De Niro performance you expect, but it's one of those performances where you're like, well, this is why he's in the conversation for one of the greatest actors of all time.
Right.
But mine is Heat.
Heat is a really good movie.
Heat so much. It's perfect. It's got great action. It's got De Niro and Pacino.
Great soundtrack. Oh, the ending sound, the ending, it's just, it's fantastic. The whole movie is fantastic. Heat is fantastic.
Heat is a great movie. It's a little bit long, but it's worth every second. If you haven't seen Heat, it's on Hulu. Go check it out. Heat is so good. It's De Niro plays Neil McCauley, the bank robber, and Pacino plays Vincent Hanna. And at that point, it was the only time you saw Pacino and De Niro on screen together, and it was a brilliant scene. It was the one scene I actually almost wish The Irishman was never made, and the other one, that other stupid one, Righteous Kill, was never made, so that could be the only scene because it's so good.
It is a fan. I remember I saw Heat when it came out in the theater.
Yeah.
It's a great
1995.
Yeah, it's a great theater movie.
Yeah.
That's one thing I other than obviously my kidneys that I liked before the pandemic, but going to see movies in the theater.
You know, one more thing about
but you're back into going to
one
see
more
theaters.
thing. Yes, I see movies all the time. So one more, and it's actually better now because fewer people go. So the one thing I just learned from a fairly recent interview with Al Pacino is that Pacino's character, he's very, very loud. Very, very loud. And it's because this is excluded from the outtakes. It's excluded. It's in a deleted scene. But he is a chronic cocaine user.
So I heard that too, Marcus.
And he said that
But nowhere in the movie do you see any of that.
No, I don't think they deleted a scene. He says it's something that you just sort of have to figure out on your own. That's why he's so jacked up, is because he's an avid cocaine user, and he also basically admitted that in order to play that role, he was chipping cocaine the entire time.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny.
Do you know, Marcus, another movie that was like that is Caddyshack. And supposedly in the budget, the line for the gopher was where they put all the coke money.
Really?
So there was like $40,000 in there for the gopher. Yeah. But there's no real gopher, it's just a puppet. Right?
Yeah.
That at the end of the movie, right? Or pops up throughout the movie, and that was the cocaine budget.
That's great.
Which then obviously led to ruining many of those careers.
Yes.
Chevy Chase to include.
Chevy Chase, yeah.
Although after that he did do The Vacations, which were funny.
The Vacations were great. He was in the show TV show Community, which was pretty good. It was a funny show. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus Farrow.
So, Marcus,
that was Breaking Bad.
That was a very good show.
Great show.
Talk about spinoffs. They have Better Call Saul.
So, I've talked about this last week. I'll say it again because I enjoy this sort of diatribe. Have you seen it? I
haven't gotten into Better. I have not really seen Better Call Saul.
So 508-996-0500. We'll see your calls in line. We'll take them in a second. But so Better Call Saul is about the main character, Walter White's lawyer, Saul Goodman,
who is just a minor character.
More or less, he was a little bit more prominent. Like in season 2, he was a guest actor, and more like basically. You know, I think he was almost written off. A lot of those characters were almost written off. It was kind of weird, but he ended up becoming the main character in Better Call Saul, obviously, which is about him. But it's about him becoming Saul, because if you remember in Breaking Bad, he says, the real name's McGill. I changed my name to Goodman because they like a pipe-hitting member of the tribe, which basically meant he said he wanted to portray himself as a Jewish lawyer because he thought it would get him more clients. And so... And throughout the whole series of Better Call Saul, his name's actually Jimmy McGill. It's about him becoming Saul Goodman. And so it's really tightly written in that it's like, it's the same writers and creator of Breaking Bad. It's the same. Right. So it's really tightly written because these guys have had 6 years to get into their groove, basically. Right. And so it starts off stronger than Breaking Bad does. I don't think it finishes stronger. The last season's really good, but there's like a midway. Like season 3 is basically, or season 4, he's basically he's selling used cell phones. Like it's kind of weird. It's good. It's very good. It's not better than Breaking Bad.
Okay.
But it is very good, I will say. So it's worth watching. It's worth checking out. And plus, there's a lot of Breaking Bad like prequel stuff if you're into that. But it's kind of hard with the prequel stuff because I know Gus isn't going to die, right? Right? Like there's like this really tense scene where Gus is in a standoff with someone. Like, well, I know the other guy's going to die,
right? Right.
508-996-0500. Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Well, I know you try to keep it light, but, I've always said New Bedford is a small world, and, even some people that and stuff like that, and a roundabout way you get to know other people. Everybody knows everybody, really, even though it's a city.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
And
yes.
you mentioned before Joe, the Animal Barboza.
Yes.
Okay? I'm sure he has some relatives that are still around, okay, in the area. And just to go to show you how everything's connected. His uncle married my father's sister, okay? And his uncle, okay, I chose to be my godfather.
No
okay?
kidding.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So everybody is connected everywhere in New Bedford somewhere,
yes.
And it comes up. I know, Marcus, you talk a lot of times about how, we shouldn't, say that young kids, shouldn't be invoked because they're bad in school and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, through the family, I started out on Windsor Street. I didn't realize I was there, but I didn't end up there. I ended up another street in the South End. And Joe Barboza and my cousin were cousins on the Barboza side. And my parents often told me a story about was Christmas. I don't know if I was around yet or whatever. But my cousin and Joe Barboza fell asleep under my parents' Christmas tree waiting for Santa Claus.
Really?
So I think it kind of humanizes him a little bit more. I think he had a tough family life. I don't know all the particulars. Okay, again, his uncle, my godfather, was a great guy. He drove truck for Hemingway. Got sick one time driving the truck on Route 18, pulled it over to the side, and had a medical incident and died shortly after I was confirmed. So just to give you another aspect of it, again, I know he used to visit the area and go to Rivet Street, all right? And I remember my cousin would be let know that he was coming down, and just to keep it quiet. Right. And one time, I believe it was called the North End Sea Grill. It's like across from where, I guess, Keyman is, and the building opposite of that.
Okay. And
they had clam boils there, which were very good. Okay. And they went up there for a clam boil. And my cousin, after the incident, told me that he just said to his cousin, hey, we got to get out of here. There's some guys in here that I know are looking for me. And just leave everything the way we're not going to pay. No, you're not going to pay. Let's just get out of here quick.
Really?
It was like a circular bar in there that you could sit and eat and stuff like that. So, and I believe my cousin one time took a beating because they had a case of mistaken identity. They thought, this Barboza was that Barboza.
Right.
And I'm sure he's probably got relatives around that are a little closer related blood-wise. The other thing...
I went to high school with relatives of Joe Barboza, actually.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. And again, I think he had a tough family life from what I was told. Yeah. And just like you say, sometimes kids shouldn't be pigeonholed when they're young, but sometimes even being young and stuff, you don't end up in the best spots. And maybe that happened with him. I know in the end he told my cousin, which was his cousin on the Barboza side, that he knew that he lived by the gun and he would probably die by the gun. At least that's what my cousin told me, who's now no longer here. And sure enough, it happened in California. Supposedly he was called over to to a car, and the guy took out, I think, a shotgun or something and blew him away.
Yeah.
It was a guy that he knew. The other thing I heard, too, was that, and again, this is, through family connections, that he was finding that a lot of the people around him that he knew were being eliminated, by the patriarchal.
Oh, absolutely they were, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why he went the way he did. Now, you can believe that or not believe it.
Oh, no, that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, again, like I said,
From what I understand.
Yeah, he told my cousin, who was his cousin, that he knew he had lived by the gun and he would probably end up dying that way. And my cousin did see to it that he was brought back here. The body was threatened that they would try to, mutilate the body or something like that. He was in a local funeral home, which is still around. And eventually he was buried in the area. Okay?
Really?
Oh, yeah, he's buried in the area. And they put a big rock or stone on top of his grave, which is unmarked, so that, that even his remains were threatened. And that's what I know of it through family and marriage and connections and things like that. So just to add a little.
No, that's actually really interesting.
That's a colorful addition to the story. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm not a Barboza, right? But his uncle was my godfather and a great guy, and that's why I chose him and everything like that to be my godfather. And it's to show that who knows what I don't know the circumstances. He grew up. I think they were tough.
Yes.
And he grew up tough, and all I can say is if you can think of that person being a little kid falling asleep underneath a Christmas tree when he was a young boy with my cousin in my parents' house waiting for Santa Claus, it's kind of different, that sort of stuff.
The only picture I've ever seen him, he's always wearing black Ray-Ban sunglasses. So
oh, yeah.
I'm picturing a little kid in black Ray-Ban sunglasses.
That was long before that.
Right.
But again, too, nobody called him where I came from the animal. If he was mentioned as Baron Barboza.
Yes, I remember that was his nickname as well.
So that sort of thing. But again, just some little. And again, in New Bedford, everybody knows everybody. Even though I give an example. I think the mayor. Okay, I think his grandfather was Jack Kenny. Am I right?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think probably on his mother's side. I was often told that was his grandfather. Maybe you can find out. But if it's true, I remember one time I was helping a friend coach. He was the manager, coach a Pony League team, and there was a Jack Kenny that was the commissioner of the Pony League and everything, or treasurer. And he was a very nice guy. So in a roundabout way, if what I was told is true, I know the mayor's grandfather, if that's his name, Jack Kenny. He smoked a cigar and stuff like that. I was at a cigar, came watch the games. Didn't have any kids involved with the league, but he took part in it. So it's a small world, even though
it is a small world.
For sure.
Is a what you call it, Can we go on to a pleasant thing?
Sure.
A little more serious. The cable. Are they going to Are they going to broadcast the city council meetings, or at least the city council, maybe not all?
So Jim Marshall, I think, has talked to Tim about that. And Jim's a great guy. I know he's a listener.
Yeah, he used to work for your station years ago, didn't he? On the
he
weekend?
did.
Yeah, he was on the Weekend News guy. Yeah, very nice guy.
Yeah, and I said apparently it's a bit more complicated than maybe people realize, but they're working on it. I know they're working on it.
I know he works for them, and that's his boss. So I guess he's got. I don't see the complications today with the technology that they have. Maybe they get some high school kids like work at your station to go at night and help produce the thing and stuff like that. And
I hate to say that something is less complicated because I don't know. I really don't.
Well, I don't know either. But again, today with
it seems to me that they're able to do it.
Fairhaven does
Zoom
it.
meetings, and I usually try to watch the city council meetings when I don't know when they're going to come on, and I try to catch them. Sometimes by watching it yourself, you get a different view than what might be said about the council meeting.
All the time, my friend.
Yeah, so
right?
you get that idea there and everything like that. So to me, the cable company should have some responsibilities to the community it serves, since they do have a monopoly of the cable broadcast, and certainly, getting out government almost like a C-SPAN raw to the public wouldn't be a bad thing. Not all of us can, go to the meetings and be in there and all that sort of stuff. So
no, I think it's a great idea. I don't know what's taken them so long. I wish I knew so I could help them, because it seems to me, as Marcus points out, other towns are doing it.
Yeah, and
without any trouble.
Yeah, and since we've lost the Standard Times as a viable newspaper, you guys and they, to me, being the only cable monopoly in the area, should have an obligation. I used to love Jim Phillips when he had that, and again, I think it's before Comcast took it over. Might have been Colony or Whaling City, whatever it was. When Jim had a nightly broadcast about local news, that was great. And
that broadcast was legendary.
Oh, he was perfect for it because he's a straight news guy. He's not an opinion guy like you guys are. You guys will give an opinion. I don't think he feels comfortable doing that. And he was great for that show. And
well, the things I say are factually true.
Yeah, and it's just the facts, man. Like Jack Webb on Dragnet and that sort of stuff. But that, is something I hope they do. There's another thing I want to mention to you guys if I can go on,
Yeah, why not?
Sure. We might have other people.
We do, but we'll put them on hold for you.
Thank you, my friend.
Yes.
I watched Cheryl Atkinson this week. I like her program, too. And she talked about a school, Thomas Jefferson STEM High School. I don't know where it is. I didn't catch that. But they pointed out that there were a lack of certain minorities in the school, and it was going for, STEM education and engineering and stuff like that. And Asians seem to do tremendously well, though, okay? And so because of this, they changed their admission policy, again, this is going back to the vote thing, to be based upon diversity rather than who got the best grades. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
You're finding that's what the Harvard lawsuit's all about.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about.
A long time ago, I once heard someone say, and at the risk of offending anybody, that without legacies and affirmative action, your entire Harvard class would be Jewish and an Asian only. That there'd be no what you'd call European whites other than Jewish people, and there'd be no Irish people, there'd be no Italians. Without legacies and without some affirmative action, there'd be no African Americans. Now, I think that's an exaggeration, but that was meaning that Asians do so well.
Yes, they do, and that's what this pointed out, that the Asians, there was one gentleman that came from Vietnam. For some reason, he went to South Africa, and then from South Africa, he ended up in America, and it showed him as a junior high school student and doing well and going into the service and having an engineering degree and all that sort of stuff and moving on. And what this affirmative action thing would mean, there would be less Asians going to this school and more Latinos and blacks. And
that is the problem in Boston right now. They're having a problem up there with like Boston Latin and things like that. Yeah. A dispute. I don't know if it's a problem, it's a dispute about the tests and whether they want to do, because the Asians are scoring so high on the tests. Look, in my experience, I haven't had a lot of experience with Asian people because there are not as many around here as there are, say, Portuguese and Irish, right? I mean, it's just not as big of an ethnic class. But I can remember when I was in college, some of my friends went to UMass Dartmouth and they were in the engineering program. And I would come home on the weekends. We would hang around. They had a friend who became a friend of mine who was in the engineering program, this Asian kid, whose family owned a restaurant. The young man worked in the restaurant business hard, then went to engineering school. He did really well in engineering school. Still had the time to hang out with us yahoos, you know what I mean? I mean, the kid just had a different work ethic, even than me. I mean, it's just, and I have a pretty good work ethic. It was just amazing.
Well, again, do you think and this guy was Vietnamese, he could be Chinese, Japanese, or whatever. I'm not trying to be,
I think it's cultural.
Yeah. There seems to be a cultural thing that, for whatever reason, I'm generalizing, Asian people seem to have more of a like you say, a work ethic and commitment to family and survival of the family, I guess.
Listen, man, I got to really take this break. I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you for giving me so much time.
Thank you, my friend.
New Bedford's News Talk Station, 1420 WBSM. Take South Coast Tonight with you wherever you go. Stream Chris and Marcus on the WBSM app or get their podcast on the app at WBSM.com. Now, back to South Coast Tonight.
Hey, welcome back. 508-996-0500 is how you can join us. We've kept it light today, and we're going to continue to do that. We'll be back on the politics, the local stuff tomorrow. I think Ryan Pereira is calling in tomorrow.
The impending meteor that's going to hit the Earth. Other things to be worried about that can't really affect you.
Well, none of this really matters in the grand scheme of things.
No, we're just having a light program.
Because of entropy, And so,
what about global warming?
That too. The cascade of natural disasters that will befall this planet at one point or another, whether it be the climate crisis or the fact that the sun's going to explode or that the universe is going to collide with the Andromeda, it all renders this ultimately meaningless. UFOs are a thing. So that's
human abduction by UFOs.
Yeah. So there's the likelihood of a intelligent life and one that's
cruel,
technologically superior to ours.
Right. But sadistic.
But sadistic.
They've got to be sadistic. I mean, if they're just technologically superior, but
what's the fun?
Right.
What's the point?
What's the point for them?
Yeah. What's the point? That's what I'm saying. What's the point for them? Yeah.
Right. I mean, if they just want to entertain us, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Like breakdancing aliens?
Yeah.
Breakdancing aliens would be kind of cool. But they won't be. They'll be cruel aliens who want to, take us apart and look inside of us. Or it'll be like, I'm going to be a human Stretch Armstrong. Some kid, some alien child will be pulling my arms, pulling my legs in all different directions, trying to see what's inside me. Stretch Armstrong.
You won't find kidneys?
Listen, they'll spend less time with me than they will with other people. That's the upside. This guy's broken. I want another one, Dad, alien Dad. This one's broken.
So, 508-996-0500 as we meander through this pointless existence.
Right.
Where's the spleen? Yeah. Anyway, so we'll do, I think Ryan Pereira is calling in tomorrow because they've got the city council meeting on ordinances. So he'll give us a buzz tomorrow.
There's still time to lobby your city council on those ballot questions, whichever way you come down.
Yeah, it looks like people have changed their minds since it was originally voted on.
There is flexibility on both sides of all three questions.
I think so. Yeah. So it's a legitimate question as to whether or not any of them or all of them pass.
And we know from their own words that they are malleable, that they can be moved by phone calls.
They are.
Real and imagined.
They are, yeah. 508-996-05. 2 fills today. We got 2 fills. It's the second fill we got tonight.
Hey, look at it.
Yeah.
For those of you who missed it, Phil Pataloga stopped by.
He did, yeah. And then...
but he'll be back in a couple hours.
Yeah, he'll be back soon. Should have just stayed.
He should have just stayed.
It would have had time for show prep, and that couch is actually pretty comfortable, honestly.
If you have a throw cloth to put on it, it's it's
you know more than I do because
that's true.
When I
Don't just leave it at that.
Yes, I'm going to leave it at that. So because when
our neighbor is Gazelle.
When I had my Saturday show, I just I would just afterwards, I just kind of lay down for a few minutes and then I'd leave. But,
that has been standard practice for some of our fellow radio hosts.
508-996-0500. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus Farrow. Chris will be back momentarily. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program this evening. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat again. Chris and I came in today. We were like, hey, let's keep it light. Let's talk about some other stuff, and so we have been talking about other stuff. What's your favorite TV show? Things like that. Oh yeah, here you go, Chris.
We talked a lot about Joe Barboza. I think sometimes, Marcus, when we just throw a jump ball, let the callers drive the conversation.
Yeah.
We come down with some really interesting stuff. I mean, that Barboza stuff was wild.
That was very cool. I really enjoyed that.
I just want to tell everybody that former Sheriff Tom Hodgen, he and his wife just dropped off a beautiful meatloaf for me, and it's
very nice.
Really, very, very nice. Tom has been a tremendous friend to me. He's been a friend of mine to me for years, but while I've been sick, he used to come visit me in the hospital. He's a hell of a man.
Chris, did you ask him his favorite TV show?
I think we
settled on Dragnet.
We did. Because I think the time period is right.
Yeah.
Because he would have been a young guy.
Yeah.
A child.
The type of show. Yeah, it works.
It would have inspired him.
Yeah.
Maybe the Lone Ranger, too.
I could see that, too.
Now, Marcus, the Lone Ranger, the black and whites were really good television.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage you to look up some of those black and white Lone Ranger shows. They were really good. There was a show on Turner Classics that was like a cowboy show I used to watch Saturday mornings at dialysis. It's not on anymore, but it was it was an old series that had been a lot of short movies, things like that had been put together into a series. But the old Lone Rangers, and then it went to a color program. But when I was a kid, you had a ton of black and white reruns of cowboy shows like that. Lone Ranger. They were really well done. Really well done.
Yeah. Gunsmoke, too.
Yeah, Gunsmoke.
That was like the first, type of, almost like the first, modern TV show.
That ran for a lot of years.
It did, yeah. Speaking of Kevin Bacon, which is carrying a conversation off air to the on air.
Right.
We were talking about Kevin Bacon. We never talked about
City on a Hill.
Yeah,
I almost broke into City on a Hill. I forget. I think we took a break. I did not like the last season.
It had the same sort of rapey vibes.
Yeah. I don't like sex-related crime shows. Rape to me is not entertainment.
Yeah, it was an intense show for sure. It was an intense season. It was a little bit different for sure. I don't know where it's going to go from here. It seems like one of those shows that, honestly, I think a lot of shows are tightening it up a little bit because they're trying to avoid jumping the sharks. Succession's only 4 seasons. Barry's only 4 seasons. Breaking Bad was 5, technically 6. They said 5.1, 5.2. So I think a lot of shows are tightening up because they want to avoid the shark jumping. And so that might be one of them.
In some respects, Marcus, how do I put this? By trying to avoid it, they become it.
Yeah.
Right? That I thought the line where they had this former FBI agent who is now wealthy beyond anyone's comprehension.
Lived on Beacon Hill.
Right. Who was also a pervert who, with his wife, went out and committed all kinds of weird sex crimes involving their daughter's friends.
Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, that's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact nobody who's that rich becomes an FBI agent, I'm sorry to say.
Good evening.
You're traveling to another dimension. Not only a dimension of sight and sound, but a dimension of mind. You just crossed over into the Twilight Zone. One of the best old shows of all time. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
So I will tell you that there's a New York station I listen to, you listen to occasionally. They had a guy on recently who's a college professor who's written a book about the Twilight Zone.
Oh, cool.
It was a really good interview, and it may be something we want to look. Although I was never a big fan of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, but we got listeners that were.
Absolutely, we do.
I mean,
we have a boss.
I like to think that this show is only about things that I like.
Correct. I think that's true.
But
by and large, that is true.
By and large, that's true.
We know Tim listens, and Tim likes the Twilight Zone.
Tim likes the Twilight Zone.
And Tim is our boss.
Yeah. So
we should please the boss. You see where I'm going with that, Marcus?
We get memos. He sends memos. Today is Twilight Zone.